Hey Fae folk, welcome back. So, lately on the channel, I have noticed this trend of a specific genre of comment just sort of becoming more popular, and I want to talk about it. So, I have noticed, I would say maybe like the last 10-ish videos that I've made that are specifically about like one particular release or a review that I'm doing, not like a ranking video where I'm talking about a bunch of different dolls or anything like that, but like any dedicated sort of doll video. I've noticed that more and more and more lately, I'm getting comments along the lines of, you're complaining about it, but you still bought it or you still plan to buy it, or even just more generalized comments that aren't directed at me specifically, being like, oh, well, people are complaining, but they're still going to buy it. And I just thought it was really interesting that I've seen this like uptick, and I wanted to weigh in and give my opinion because it does sort of raise the question of like, is it okay to complain and critique something but still spend your money on it? Now, I want to start this video off like super, super duper clear. Like, if you're listening to this while you're doing something else, fair play. I do that all the time. But like, lock in for just 1 second. If you are someone who has left that type of comment on my videos or on anyone else's content, this is not like a hit piece against you. This isn't me like responding in anger. This isn't me being like, you're wrong, like you're messed up for this. Like there's nothing like that. I genuinely just noticed that I was getting this comment a lot from like multiple different people. So very clearly this is like a sentiment that is becoming more popular, and I just wanted to talk about it. This isn't like a fight. This isn't like a direct comeback or anything like that. It's nothing malicious, I guess is maybe a good way to put it. I'm not like thinking of anybody being like, yeah, this will show that stupid commenter. I just wanted to talk about this. So feel free to go back to whatever you're doing if you are listening and like multitasking here. I just really wanted to be super clear about that at the outset because I'm not trying to hurt anybody's feelings. I just want to talk. A big part of the reason why I want to be so clear on that disclaimer and that distinction is because, spoiler alert, I do very much disagree with the concept of it's not okay to complain about something but still buy it, or it's bad to critique something if you have bought it. I do not agree. Again, that's not an attack against anybody who does agree with that point. I just wanted to explain like my side of things and sort of like talk about it. So I wanted to be clear that like this isn't me coming at you and being like, you're wrong for this. I just wanted to sort of explain the other side of it. And also, I don't always agree that that is the case. I think like 90% of the time, complain about what you buy, it's fine. There is like a little 10% that does get weird, and I will be discussing that at the end. But yeah, that's why I wanted to be sort of more careful and just let you guys know I don't mean this in any personal way against anyone out there. But let's go ahead and just start off with like why I personally critique what I buy, because I think different people might have different reasons. And again, we're going to get into that as the video goes along, but it's easiest to just start out with my own like personal experience. And I do apologize for anyone who's been around for a while because I'm going to be repeating things that you've probably heard me say, but it's important and relevant to the conversation, so it kind of is what it is. I like to critique things. It's not just a like, oh, I'm doing this because I'm seeing a flaw. Like, it is that. I'm not ever making shit up to critique. Like, I'm not like intentionally being like, what can I possibly be mad about? That's not the situation. And I do think a lot of people think that. That's not the situation at all. The things that I observe are just things that I end up observing. So when I say that I like to critique things, I'm not saying like I'm hunting for reasons to critique things. I'm saying that when I find things that I think are worth criticism, there is like a certain joy that I find in getting to have that criticism. I That probably doesn't make any sense.
If it helps at all, what I was poorly attempting to articulate is that I find it fun to engage my brain muscles and think critically.
It's like if you have like a food that you enjoy, I can't think of anything off the top of my head. Like, say you live in an area that like doesn't have a lot of Chinese restaurants. You like Chinese food, but you really have to go like out of your way to get it. So it's not that you're like on the prowl for Chinese food all the time because you know it's just like not something that's super common in your area. But when Chinese food is offered to you, if a friend is like, "Hey, I'm going to cook Chinese food," or like you're out of town and you pass a Chinese restaurant, you're going to go get Chinese because you like it. So that's more of what I'm saying here. I'm not hunting for things to critique, but I do personally enjoy when I have something that I can critique. It's sort of like making the best out of a bad situation, you know, like it, especially with dolls, it does sort of suck to be like, "Oh, this isn't good, this isn't good, this isn't good." But I think for me, it's like, okay, well, now I can take this, oh, it isn't good, and I can make a video about it and I can share my thoughts and have a discussion with people. And so there's something that I can get out of it to make it better than just, wow, this sucks. Like there's a way for me to still find enjoyment with it. And when it comes to like pieces of media, because there is sort of a difference between like visually like a defect or something like that versus pieces of media. I love sinking my teeth into a good piece of media that I can criticize. I don't want perfect media. And honestly, I would argue that almost no media, if any media, is perfect. I think that that's maybe not something that human beings can achieve. I love when media is imperfect and when there's questions that it raises and when I can critique it. I like that. I think it's fun. I'm like sort of a nerd. I literally would write essays just for kicks, just because I can, just for shits and giggles, because that shit is fun for me. I love analyzing movies and novels. I love stuff like that. So for me, critiquing something doesn't have like necessarily the wholly negative connotation that I think it does have for a lot of people. And so that's a big reason why I personally like can find enjoyment in criticizing things.
To jump off of that, because I forgot to say this while I was filming, I also find myself being in the camp of like some people will like something, like for example, this G1 Spectre doll that you're seeing on screen right here. And for them, they might like something so much that it becomes perfect in every iteration. And like anything, if you love G1 Spectra, maybe it's like anything that has her face on it, you automatically love because it has her. And I'm not saying that that's a bad way to be. What I'm saying is that I'm sort of the opposite, where I love G1 Spectra, her core doll specifically, so much that anything that has her face on it or like any other doll of hers that doesn't live up to that standard, I'm like more picky about and I'm more critical of it because I love it so much. So like this doll, the Ghouls Night Out Spectra, I think looks heinous. I think that it just looks so bad. I hate these colors for her. It doesn't work for me the same way that G1 Spectra, like her core doll, worked for me. They're both G1. I don't know why I said it like that, but it's just like for me, I take the opposite approach and I end up being more picky with things I love because I love them so much that I want them to be like as close to perfect as possible. So that's another thing that it's at play here.
And specifically when it comes to YouTube, I like knowing that I can be helpful. Again, I'm not like trying to call out anyone in particular, but I did get a comment like it must have been a year ago at this point, and it stuck in my head because I thought it was so strange. And it was a comment on a review, and this person was just saying, "You are always so negative in your reviews. Can you please be more positive?" And I was like, no, because I am positive in my reviews when that's merited, but I'm not going to lie to y'all and just like not say, hey, there's a problem here. That's like negativity. Okay, sure. But I think not pointing out bad things on dolls can get to a point of toxic positivity where it's not good to ignore all of the negative. Like I understand you might not want to 100% of your day be dealing with like intense serious topics, but like you can't pretend that there's nothing bad happening ever anywhere because that's like the far end of the spectrum. That's not helping anyone. So I think the other reason that I get like some sort of joy when a doll has a defect or when I don't necessarily like a design, especially when it comes to the reviews, because I feel like maybe I'm able to help someone. Like, oh, I bought this doll and I noticed that the hair is really, really poorly rooted. So now I might be able to stop one of you guys from spending your hard earned money on a doll that you're not going to be happy with. Like, I like that I get to try to provide that service. Like, maybe it doesn't happen. Maybe like that doesn't affect you at all. Maybe I don't have anything bad to say about a particular doll. But I like knowing that if I get a doll and I unbox her and I'm like, hey, there's this laundry list of problems, I feel like that's a good thing in a certain way because again, then you're not going to go and spend 20, 30, $50 on something and be like, Ryan said this was really good, but I have all these problems with it. Like, I'm not going to lie to y'all just for the sake of being more positive because again, like going back to the finding the good and the bad, oh, I got a bad doll. Now I can tell you so that hopefully you guys don't also get a bad doll because like who wants to spend their money on something and have it turn out not how you want it to be. So I just think that there are like reasons for me personally why complaining and buying can sort of go hand in hand. I think it's perfectly fine to like have negative opinions on something and still want to get it because you like other aspects of it. I think it's perfectly fine to get something and then realize the quality wasn't as good as you expected and then complain about it afterwards. Like I just don't personally see anything wrong with that for me. And then to kind of piggyback off of that, I do think there is an argument to be made where I just was talking about the toxic positivity. At a certain point, it's not good to refuse to criticize things. And again, that's not me saying you all should go out and you should microscopically examine this shit and complain about that and that and that and that and find reasons to upset yourself. That's not what I'm saying. Like, again, I feel like a lot of people see me critiquing things and that's like what they see. They see me like trying to find this, and that's not the case. Like, that's the other far end of the spectrum. Like, that's not fun. That's not what I'm trying to get you all to do. But I do think that if you just take everything that is handed to you at face value and just it is what it is, and you never engage critically with anything, that's not great. Like, when it comes to dolls themselves, it's much lighter stakes, like it's not necessarily as serious to not engage with like what is mostly a visual piece of media. Like, obviously it's tactile too and there's quality and everything, but like a visual piece of media, just for the sake of simplicity here, like, it's fine if you just like take that and you're like, oh yeah, this is a pretty doll, I like that. But I just think when that attitude bleeds into everything, it honestly can get downright dangerous. To use like Gen 1 of Monster High as an example, I think that it is perfectly fine to have nostalgia for the old generation, to love the films, to still watch them and everything. I don't think you're a bad person if you do that. However, if you watch all the movies and like all the webisodes and everything, and you refuse to accept that, I think it was a webisode, not a movie. Please feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. But in the Monster High lore, I think that all vampires we see outside of this one particular group have some sort of like pink tone to their skin, varying degrees, but generally speaking, they're like white to pink toned in their skin color. Except there was, again, I believe it was a webisode where you saw a group of Asian vampires and they were all yellow, and that's racist. And I'm not saying that like you are a bad person if you have fond memories for G1 of Monster High, especially because a lot of people saw that when they were younger. And so like you might not realize the messages that are like being absorbed into your brain. But I do think that if you watch that now and you don't think that was messed up, that's kind of a problem. Like, I think that if you just take the media and you're like, this is it, face value, it's Monster High, so I love it, and that's as deep as it goes, I'm sorry, like, I this point I am a little bit mean on. Again, you don't have to be, like, this hyper vigilant, like, you're always looking for shit to be mad about, but when blatant racism like that comes across your face, you need to be able to recognize, I can like a lot about this and still say this has its problems, and still recognize that that's like a fucked up thing to have included in the webisodes. Because if you don't do that, if you go through life and it's just like everything is okay all the time, everything is at face value, I blindly trust every single thing that I'm shown and just like assume that it's good because of the name brand or the person that it's associated with, you're going to miss things. And I just don't think that that's like a healthy way to walk through life. I'm sorry. I said I wasn't judging anyone and I'm not, but I am just saying like you do need to think critically at certain points. 100% of the time, no, you are allowed to go home and just enjoy your dolls. Like, that's not what I'm trying to say. But there has to be a balance. I don't think it's healthy to be like obsessed with criticism to the point where you can't enjoy anything. But I also don't think that it's healthy to refuse to criticize anything just because you say that you like something. And like once you say that you like something, you're like not allowed to criticize it. I don't think either of those is healthy. I think being somewhere on the spectrum in the middle is where it's good to land. So, just in general, I'm an advocate for being open to criticizing things that you like. I think that's just an important thing that we should be able to do, because just because we have fond feelings for something doesn't inherently mean that it's perfect and flawless. And I think it's important to recognize that that's okay.
To take it away from dolls for a second, just to like really exemplify what I'm trying to say, I promise you, every single one of you watching right now has at least one memory, regardless of how excellent your childhood was, at least one memory of having a disagreement with or fighting with your parents or your guardian, whoever ended up raising you, whoever was like influential in your life. You have a memory, at least one, that is negative. that's normal because people aren't perfect and we're always going to fight no matter how much we love each other. Some people have a lot more bad memories than others, but like every one of you has at least one bad memory. That doesn't mean that you have to hate whoever raised you. Just because they hurt your feelings one time or, multiple times doesn't mean that you aren't allowed to love them anymore because it's on a black and white scale like that. You can recognize, hey, they hurt my feelings. You can voice that and say, hey, this incident hurt my feelings and I didn't like that. And you can move forward, assuming it's like a nice, healthy relationship. But like, you don't have to hate them. And so that's just what I'm trying to say is like, you're allowed to like things. I still have G1 Monster High dolls. I'm sure as shit not going to throw them out just because the media was somewhat problematic, but you can still recognize that it was problematic.
That got a little heavy. Sorry. Stepping away to like a lighter reason why I think it's perfectly fine that people might complain about something and still buy it is simply that we don't all collect in the same way. Some people collect very specifically just one brand, some people collect multiple brands. There's inbox versus out of box collectors. We prioritize different things. Some collectors will not buy a doll that is not fully articulated because that's what's most important to them. Other collectors don't give a shit about articulation, but if a doll has polypropylene as the hair fiber, they're not touching it with a 10-foot pole. So, my point here is I think that there is a certain amount of very unintentional, again, I'm not trying to come at anybody like here. I don't think that it's on purpose, but I think that there is like a hint of almost judgment and like a lack of understanding that people might collect differently when you leave comments like that. Again, very unintentional. I truly am not trying to be a shithead here. I just grr. But like, I know a lot of people collect and they are completionists, whether that's like one line or multiple lines. They buy every single thing that a given doll brand produces. Let's just say we're using Monster High as the example today. I don't know. It's like a doll brand that I feel very connected to. So, of course, it's the first one that pops into my head. You might have people who collect and like they want to have every single Monster High doll that comes out because that's what brings them joy. I am not that person. I think some Monster High dolls are butt fucking ugly and I don't want them in my house. But that's just me, and I don't feel like it's my place to go to someone who is a completionist for Monster High and that's what makes them happy and that's like their goal for their collection is to have all of them and be like, you're doing it wrong because you don't actually like that doll. You just bought them so that you can complete your collection. Because, okay, and they didn't steal money out of my pocket to go buy the doll. Like, it's not my business if that's what brings them joy. And I think that, like, I've talked to different people who collect in that completionist manner, and some people just genuinely find something to like about every doll, which I think is crazy in and of itself. And power to you if you feel that way, because I can't imagine. And honestly, like, I think it's kind of cool the concept of looking at every single doll and finding something that you like about them. Some of them just want to have the complete collection and that's their goal and that's what makes them happy. And they're like, yeah, I don't like this one as much, but I still like having this doll because it helps me get closer to my goal. And I think I think that's fine. I don't think it's my, again, business to police how they enjoy their collection and how they enjoy their dolls. The last thing that I want to touch on before I talk about the certain circumstances in which I do agree with people who are like, why are you buying it if you're complaining about it? This one I do think is getting a little bit more into the realm of controversial territory, and it's the reason why this is my second time trying to film this video. So please just like know I'm probably oversimplifying a lot because I'm really trying to keep the focus on dolls as much as I possibly can, and I'm really trying to not go off on too many different tangents here. So just I don't know, take this with a grain of salt. But I feel like I can hear the comments already coming in like, yeah, okay, it's like yeah, you can buy what you like and like it's okay I guess if you complain about it, but there's the problem of you're not voting with your dollar. Like if you complain about it, then companies are just going to keep making shit because you're buying it even though you're complaining about it. And to that I say, you are partially correct. Like there is a certain truth to the concept of voting with your dollar, and this is where I'm very much generalizing things, so please don't yell at me. I'm not an economist. I'm just talking about this because it's like relevant to the conversation and I'm not saying that it doesn't work. Okay, please do not hear me. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying there's no truth in vote with your dollar, but I also don't think that it's like a black and white truth like some people might think that it is. I think that voting with your dollar can absolutely affect companies and change the way that they do things. But I also think sometimes companies turn a like blind eye to it and like don't hear the reasoning behind it. And I think that sometimes people who are not at fault for the flaws or the price or whatever end up getting hurt because of lowered sales, even though that wasn't the intention. Not all the time. I am not trying to say that there's 0% efficacy to the concept of voting with your dollar, but I am saying it's also not 100% efficacy. And the reason that I bring it up here is because I have two sort of thoughts that come up when that becomes the comment, because like there are the more general comments like, oh, you're complaining but you still bought it, but then there are the more detailed ones where it's like, oh, this wouldn't be a problem if people like you stopped buying this because you're complaining but you're buying it, and so you're telling the companies that it's okay. And like it's a little bit more in depth like that. And again, there is like some degree of truth there, but the first issue that I have with that is that it inherently holds the consumer responsible for the actions of the company. And yes, we do have power as consumers. Again, I'm not entirely writing off the idea of voting with your dollar. I have a second point. We'll get there. But I do think that there is a certain level of unfairness of saying, hey, you purchased from this company. So all of the weight of them exploiting their customers and giving us a sub quality product and like not releasing enough of it and making it like this false scarcity, that's your fault now. I literally did get comments when the Monster High Alien doll dropped. I got several comments being like, people like you who bought this doll and didn't watch the movie are the reason that people like who are real fans weren't able to get it. And like it's your fault that I don't have the doll. And I'm not shitting you. Like I got so many of these comments. I don't know if they're still there, but not because of me, but like I don't know if people would have gone back and deleted some of them. But like no, it's not. I'm really sorry. It's not my fault that certain people didn't get the Alien Skeletor. You know whose fault it is? Mattel, for not making more of them. And I think it's inherently unfair to blame another person for the crimes of a company. Like, I don't think it's fair to blame the consumer for what the company is doing. That's it. That's the whole sentence. I just personally really don't vibe with that. I don't think that me buying the Bratz Bratsies, even though they were overpriced and that release was a god dang disaster, as I said in my last video, I don't think that I'm the reason that they're 25. I don't think all of the weight of that has to fall on me. I don't think that that's fair. I spoke in that video about how I'm a little embarrassed that I gave in to like the FOMO and I really, really wanted them and like they're not worth that price. So I'm open and transparent about it. Like I'm not saying it's perfect, but I also think that it's kind of mean to be like, you, Rain, you're the reason that we're probably going to get our wave two. You're the reason this is probably going to happen again. I'm not. Sorry, I'm not. And I just don't think that it's fair to push that responsibility onto people who are just trying to buy something that like makes them happy, because something can make you happy even if you complain about it. Like you can have pros and cons of something, but the pros outweigh the cons for you, like it's not a black and white scale like that. But the other thing that I think sort of plays into this concept of voting with your dollar and everything is that again it really truly can work. Okay, it can. I'm not trying to say it can't, but sometimes companies are really bad at nuance there. You might see a company, let's go Rainbow High this time. We'll use a Rainbow High as an example. Back when Series 2, like the second core series of Rainbow High was coming out, we got leaked photos for Crystal Bailey. Her name was going to be Jet Dawson, and then they later released Jet Dawson as a different character. I'm just going to say Crystal Bailey because that's way more simplistic, and that's the character we ended up getting. We got like a little teaser. Leak is technically not correct. It was like a little teaser picture of what, like, I think it was the arm, but I don't quote me on that. But the point is we got a little teaser picture for what Crystal Bailey was going to like look like, and she did not have the skin tone that she actually ended up having in the final doll. She was significantly lighter. The reason that this was notable was because in the entire first wave of Rainbow High, the darkest character was Sunny, who is not particularly dark. Like she definitely has, a deeper skin tone than I do. But like that's not the deepest skin tone that exists, and it's like not representative really of the whole of humanity. And so when we started getting these teaser pictures for series 2, people were like, are you serious? You're gonna make another line without a doll that has a deeper skin? And it's like, that's kind of weird of you. Like maybe let's diversify things a little bit. And what ended up happening in that situation is MGA heard the critique and they went back to the drawing board and they redid Crystal's design and they gave her a deeper skin tone. So in that case, that worked. It wasn't like a vote with your dollar situation because the dolls hadn't come out yet, but it was a situation where they heard the outcry from the fans and they were like, oh shit, okay, let's fix this. Let's do better in this case. So that's sort of a success story, but it is just as plausible that they could have been like if they didn't post the teasers and if they made, wave 2 and it was also just as undiverse as wave 1, there is the possibility that people could have not bought wave 2 sort of in protest of not having diverse characters. And MGA, instead of seeing that and going, shit, we need to diversify the brand, we need to fix this, they could have gone, sales are bad, I guess we're just not going to make anymore. And I'm not saying that's good or correct, but what I am saying is, again, sometimes brands are not good at nuance. Sometimes all they see is the sales numbers and that's it. All they see is like how much profit they're making. And if they don't make enough profit, it doesn't really matter why you aren't buying the dolls. Again, sometimes, obviously, sometimes companies do pay attention, but sometimes they don't. And it's just like, oh, the sales are dropping. I guess this line is canceled. And so then instead of ending up in a situation where the line improves and you get more diversity or better quality or whatever, like, you might be wanting that you're finding lacking, you just don't get any more, point blank, period. So, yes, I do think that there is a certain degree of argument to like spending money on things that you think are good. Like, I'm not trying to say, hey, you should go out and spend your money on stuff that you think is shit. I'm saying I think everyone should be allowed to weigh it for themselves, whether the pros do outweigh the cons. And I also think that there is a certain room for specifically buying something and criticizing it so that you can show companies, hey, we don't want this line to disappear entirely, but this is what is wrong and we want you to change it going forward. Will that always work? No, because sometimes people are just not good people. Sometimes they just want to give you shit quality or an undiverse line or whatever the case might be. But sometimes it does work. And so personally, I just find that, I guess, in my opinion, to a certain degree, that is more effective at actually evoking change is like buying the things that you do like that you think are worth it, but don't shut up about it. Don't think that just because you bought something, you're not allowed to complain. I think it's good to buy it to show we still like this to a certain degree, but hey, we're mad about this being the case. We're not happy that this is going on. A sort of relevant reference that it kind of goes in the opposite, but I'm just going to talk about it. The Skeletor dolls, object heals. It's like a very hot topic, right? When it comes to Monster High collectors, it's specifically like the G1 style dolls that they make with the object heals that they do. For a while, it was like we love the object heals. That's something that's very unique and very like Monster High coded. Like it just feels special and for Monster High. And so people really, really liked the object heals. And so Monster High heard that and they went, okay, now we're going to put object heals on every single doll ever. We have not gotten to the point where they have realized we're not happy about that, but I do think that we might be getting closer to that point. I'll explain why in a second. But what I predict will eventually happen, because Mattel is also just really bad at following like the trends, but also like the voices of the people in a timely fashion. Like they're quite slow about that sort of thing. I think what's eventually going to happen
Mm.
is they're going to hear, oh shit, people really hate the object heals that we've been putting out. Let's stop doing that because we don't want to stop making money making these Skeletor dolls. And the reason that I think that will actually end up working is because people are still buying the Skeletor dolls to a certain extent. But if you think about like early Skeletors, that they never ever got to the chance to get on sale, right? Like they sold out in minutes. And you might like occasionally have one of those like, oh, like there's a couple that have come back. We like found some extras in the warehouse, which allegedly, I don't know anything for sure, but I would allege that those are just returns that they think are not bad enough and so they end up reselling them allegedly. But as far as like a proper sale, like, hey, we have so much stock of this. Can you please just like take it? Like, we'll knock 30% off. Please get this out of our warehouse. That never happened with the early Skeletors. but we have seen it start to happen lately. I believe Yoonhee from Squid Games was available for a while, and I think she's gone on like a couple of different sales. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I heard someone say that the David doll, David from Lost Boys, I think that's right, went on sale at some point. Edward Scissorhands, as the time of filming, is still in stock. That doll did only release like a little bit ago. It wasn't like months ago. And so I don't think that that doll has hit a sale yet, but it's a collector that's still in stock. So it's showing like, hey, people are still obviously interested in this. You are making some sales and people are very actively talking about it and they're still excited for the next one whenever the next one is announced. But you're seeing that people are buying less of them because they're not happy with what they're getting anymore. And so I think that eventually Mattel is going to be like, oh shit, we should figure this out a little bit and like tweak what we're doing with the collectors so that they stop going on sale so that they go back to selling out. That's a separate issue. The selling out instantaneously is not something I'm an advocate for. I'm just saying from Mattel's perspective, the fact that the dolls are still selling, people still clearly want them, but they're not so consistently selling out like in minutes is a sign. And optimistically, I would like to hope that they will use that sign and do something about it. So, point being, it's just like, I think that there is a time and place, absolutely, to be like, hey, I'm not buying this at all. And that's up to you to decide. You know, like, I'm not going to sit here and tell you where that line is because what the do I know? Like, I'm not an authority figure. I'm just some idiot on the internet. But I think, it's perfectly fine to say, I don't want to buy from this brand anymore. I'm not telling you not to do that. But I also think it's perfectly fine to buy something from a brand and still critique it and still say, hey, this is how we want you to improve in the future because this is how you messed up this time. Like, I think there's value in that. I don't think it always has to be a bad thing. But I did say that there were certain circumstances in which I agree with commenters like that, where I agree that it's a little bit frustrating to see people complaining about things and still buying them because everything has nuance. That's been sort of a theme this video. Nothing is black and white. It is all on a spectrum here. And I definitely think there are circumstances in which it's just like, seriously, you bought that after what you said? I do think those circumstances are more few and far between. And I'm also not here to tell you where the line in the sand is there. I'm just kind of giving you where my personal line on the sand is. And it's when it's like a full 180 switch up. And it can't even be every time with that. And I think I've said this before in a video because sometimes you see pictures of a doll and you're like, that thing is ugly. And then you see it on the store shelf and it's like, oh, the photos were just genuinely terrible. And every nasty thing I said about this doll is completely incorrect. So I'm not saying everyone ever who has done a full 180 on a doll is acting like this and is doing like the complain but buy it. That's not what I'm trying to say. But there are circumstances where someone might just eviscerate a doll and be like, I hate this. I hate it so much. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. And then still purchase it. And personally, theory, I think a lot of that can be where maybe people are buying certain dolls for status. I'm not like calling anyone out in particular, but there are certain collectors who might be buying Skelectors not because they like the Skelector and not because they're a completionist, because again, that's not my business, but specifically because it's a rare doll, because it's a doll that is more expensive, that is going to sell out, and so they want to own it so that they can flex that they own it. That bothers me when people are like, yeah, this thing is super ugly. I hate it. It's the worst thing ever, but it's going to look really impressive on my shelf. So I'm going to buy it anyway. That I don't like. And that's where I think that the buying and complaining can sort of become a problem. Like, I do think there's a certain point where you can openly complain about something and then still buy it. And like the motivations are very clearly not great there. But again, I think that's so rare. I can tell you I have never done that. I think status is just like a stupid concept. That was the whole sentence. I think status is a stupid concept. The times that I've bought something and like preemptively complained about it, like the Huntrix dolls, I think is a really good example. From K-pop Demon Hunters, I did a whole video on it. Mattel made like a 3-pack collector set for $150, and it's not actually being produced and like shipped out and everything until like October of next year. And the images for the dolls that you were looking at to decide if you wanted to buy it were not like full in-person prototypes. They were in fact partially rendered prototypes. So you can't even get like a full grasp of what you're buying. And I complained about those dolls a lot. and I still bought them. But it wasn't for status. It wasn't to be like, oh, these might be like rare at some point. I'm gonna look really cool and have them in my collection, or God forbid, do it to like resell later. I'm so sorry. I just like I don't really vibe with the concept of I'm gonna buy this and then I'm gonna like wait a couple years and intentionally sell it. And like I knew that was my plan the whole time. If that wasn't your plan the whole time, you're clear. You're like free from judgment for me. But if you do buy like if you buy a Skeletor, like the Grady twins, like recently re-released, if you bought the Grady twins so that you could sit on them and then sell them again in a couple years, fuck you. That's messed up. But like, where was I even going with that? Huntrix. I got distracted. I bought those dolls despite the complaints. And I said this in the video because I was like, I don't know what the Playline dolls are going to look like yet. And I really like at the time that I filmed the video, I had seen K-pop Demon Hunters and I really liked it. Since then, I have watched it again and I'm becoming like slightly hyper fixated on it. I really love K-pop Demon Hunters. And so for me, it was like, I'm not happy about this. I'm going to express the fact that I'm not happy with how this was handled. And I think it's like weird and uncomfortable. And I don't know what the quality is going to be like. But I still bought them because for me personally, the like risk of getting them and not being happy was like a risk that to me was better than the risk of not buying them and then they never come out with Hundrix dolls that I like and then I just never get to have any. I didn't want that more than I hated the idea of spending $150 on them, so I bought them. I don't think that that was disingenuous. I think it's fair for me to complain about how that release was handled but admit that I like them enough to where I'm just tolerating it. Like I'm like, okay, I guess this is what I'm gonna do, and we'll see how it turns out. You know, like I just personally think that's fine. Or like if it's a doll that I bought, like the Oasis Ultimate Secrets dolls. That review did not go how I thought it would go. I looked at those dolls, the stock photos, and was like, these are incredible and perfect, and I love them and I need them, so I bought them. And I was really like 100% almost positive. Like I think I had a couple nitpick critiques, but like I was in when I purchased those dolls. And then I unboxed them and I found some problems. So I spoke about the problems in the review for all the reasons we discussed earlier. And I don't think that that's a bad thing either because sometimes you buy something and you have expectations and it just doesn't live up to your expectations. So, the whole point of the video, I guess, is that there are absolutely circumstances where you can complain about something and like really hate it and then buy it. And it absolutely is disingenuous and like for the wrong reasons. And it's a bad look. But I really truly think that most people who complain about something and still buy it are just weighing those pros and cons for themselves, and the pros end up outweighing the cons, but they're still open to accepting the cons. And personally, I think that that's a good thing. I don't think that that's a bad thing. But that's everything I wanted to say today, I guess. Once again, like if you feel that way, if you're like, again, if you've left one of those comments, I'm not trying to like attack you. I'm not trying to shit on you. And I said this a couple times in the video. You can draw your line where you want to draw your line. If you don't like how someone is purchasing, that's fine. Like you don't have to. I don't actually like in the least mean way possible. I actually don't need your permission to like talk shit and then still buy something. But I would just suggest like I don't know, just accepting that other people think differently. I feel like I sound like an asshole, but that's kind of where I'm at. Like I think it's perfectly fine to have these feelings, but I think when you start to almost lash out and make these comments and be like putting that weight of responsibility and being like you're sort of implying like hey, you're wrong for doing this, that's where it gets a little dicey for me. But that's just my take. I'm going to stop talking now because I feel like I have been controversial enough today. Please let me know in the comments down below what your thoughts are on this situation. Do you agree that it's like perfectly fine and normal to complain about things that you buy? Do you think I'm completely full of shit? Hope not. Sorry. But yeah, just let me know sort of your opinions on this. I hope you were able to enjoy something about this little chit chat from today's video, but that is finally it for me, guys. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day or your night or whatever it might be. And I guess it's about time that I start saying happy holidays to everyone. So happy holidays, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye, guys.